Hello, William Todts. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for finding the time to talk to Cleantechnica. And we are here, of course, at the New Mobility Congress, organized by the Polish Association of Alternative Fuels, talking about the future, of course. And will the future be ours? I mean, the e-mobility funds.
That is the million-dollar question. I think Europe still has a good chance. I think we have a lot of assets in the race. We have one of the most advanced regulatory frameworks. We have been working on e-mobility for more than 10 years. We have the right vision, we have the companies, but we are being overtaken by our competitors in China and the United States. And so now we face a choice. We can either accelerate and double down on electrification, or we can watch our competitors take what is going to be the most important car market in the 21st century.
All right. That's an interesting take. So what you're saying is that the US and China are doing it faster and better, or just faster?
I think what they're doing is they're changing the rules of the game. We in Europe, we assumed that we were in a free market, and that if you set regulations, car makers will invest, battery makers will invest. And honestly, that was actually what was happening until let's say a year and a half ago. But then the United States came with the Inflation Reduction Act, and they said, we're not going to do the regulation thing, we're going to do that later. We're just going to give you lots and lots and lots of subsidies if you come and produce in the United States. And I think that was a shock to our system, because this is not how we have operated in Europe for the last 50 years. We were always against subsidies.
Of course. And so was the US in a way, right? But they changed the game, as you said.
I don't know. I think they were always open to subsidies. The question is now, how do we respond to that? I think as a European Union, there has been an attempt to replicate the IRA. I think the honest answer, honestly, we failed to do that because there is no support for a big European fund to match the IRA. We've done a number of things. I think what's really interesting is that the Commission has launched a trade investigation against China, because that signals that the European Commission is willing to use the trade powers that it has. And if you want to do industrial policy, you can do trade, you can do subsidies, you can do local content made in France, made in America, and it looks like we're going to be more, willing to use the trade instrument, and that can send a powerful signal to companies. If you're planning to go and produce in Mexico or in China and export to Europe, that is not a viable business model,
right?
And that's the message we need to send.
Okay, makes sense. But you mentioned the legal framework that we are building in Europe, and take the ban of registrations of combustion engines in 2035. Yeah. And the thing I hear all the time, and I'd like to respond to it, is that it's totally unreasonable, unrealistic, and we are shooting ourselves in the foot because the rest of the world doesn't care, it's only Europe. Do you hear it ever?
I do hear that mostly from people that are in the business of making engines or biofuels. Okay. I think 2035 is the best thing we have done in a long time when it comes to automotive policy, because we have given the entire automotive system, be it the suppliers or the car makers or the charging manufacturers, everybody has a very clear vision on what the future is going to look like. We have time to prepare for it, and we are no longer trying to figure out what the future might look like. We have a clear path. And I think if there's, if the whole situation, with the Inflation Reduction Act and with China, if it proves one thing, it is that electric vehicles are the future. So either you compete in that sector or you're dead.
Right. That makes sense. I think what the US has done will push us forward more than anything else, because we have no other choice today.
Exactly, we don't have a choice.
Exactly.
And so the people that say, oh, we can just stay with combustion engines, we can run them on e-fuels, well, you know, if you want Europe to become like the car museum of the world, then, you know, that's
Yeah,
a great
let's go for
strategy.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you're a great fan of e-fuels. Good. There are two of us.
Yes, yes, e-fools.
Okay, so another thing, AFIR, so the push to develop or roll out more charging infrastructure. It imposes very strict quotas in countries, areas, tent routes, but then are we prepared with the regulations? That's what I'm hearing from all the charging operators. We don't need any more. We have money, but we don't have the right regulations to do it fast. Is that the main barrier within countries?
Look, I cannot evaluate the Polish situation in detail. What I've seen is that one, the number of fast chargers in Europe has doubled in the last year. Mm-hmm. And just anecdotally, you know, if you travel in Western Europe, in places like France, you know, it's a world of difference. You have 10 good fast chargers at every big motorway stop. I think there's no reason why you couldn't replicate that in places like Spain or in Poland or in other countries. I think the most important thing is to have lots of vehicles on the road.
True.
And I think that is where, you know, I hear people say, yes, the charging situation in Poland is not great, but let's face it, the number of registered electric cars is very low.
Still, yes.
It is still very low, and that is because, you know, maybe that's something we can talk about next. That is because the new car market is all company cars, and the take-up of electric cars in the Polish company car market is too slow.
Okay, your website exactly calls it low-hanging fruit, the corporate fleets.
Yeah.
So how to encourage them, or maybe coax them, or maybe force them to take up electric vehicles? Because what I'm again hearing from the business is like, yeah, it's fun, but it's not for the businesses, because the financing is wrong, everything is wrong. The residual value is wrong. Like, you know, it's things that they keep repeating, but they're not doing it seriously.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. If you look at what the United Kingdom has done, if you look at what the Netherlands has been doing for a very long time, if you look at what Belgium has recently done, the company car market is very, very responsive to changes. It can shift gear very quickly. I think, you know, the key thing is to change the tax rules surrounding company cars. The company car market is a tax market. It is, correct, in many ways. You know, it's a tax benefit that you're allowed to drive a vehicle, you know, with very low taxes. If that would be salary, you would pay much higher taxes, and so you need to pay benefit in kind taxes. Those taxes are often very low. So this is a market that enjoys quite generous support from the state, I would say. And this is not just true in Poland; it's all over Europe. Now, I would say that in exchange for these very favorable tax regimes, the least we can ask is that we stop putting petrol and diesel cars on the roads. If you make some changes to depreciation, benefit in kind, VAT reduction or deduction, the company car market will move very quickly. In my country, Belgium, the electric company car market doubled in size, 1 year to the next.
Oh wow! Okay.
And that's because they changed the tax system.
Okay, so that's what's necessary.
And of course, you know,
people
exactly. You need to change the system. Yes, individual people might be reluctant to change, and fleet managers might be reluctant to change. But you know, the reality is that electric cars are great cars.
Yes.
And so there is absolutely no reason why people that are self-employed or working for a company, I hear AstraZeneca is leading by example in Poland, like if they can electrify a fleet of 1,000 cars, I'm sure other people can do it as well.
Yes. InPost is another example. They've electrified their fleet of courier services, and it's moving forward. So I think the recent figure is 12% of the fleet is electric today. So that's pretty massive. So there is hope.
There's a lot of hope. I think there's also something around, you know, the stories we tell each other. You know, car people can be quite conservative. We love our petrol cars, we love our diesel cars, and we find it very hard to imagine that something different might be as good. The reality is that most people that go electric don't want to go back. So right. I'm very hopeful, actually.
So am I.
Yeah.
I've been an optimist for the last 10 years. So, you know, I remember celebrating the first Renault Zoe, 2016 it was, and it had range of 300 kilometers. And for us it was like, you know, that's it, you know.
That's it.
That's a game changer, right? Yeah. I mean, we will rock the market. That was, what, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
And today I'm hearing the same. You know, back then I heard, okay, if they have a range of 500 kilometers, I will think about it. Today they have a range of 500, 600 kilometers, and the same friends of mine say, maybe 900. Okay, because I can do 900 on my diesel. So okay, we still need to push a little bit.
Yeah,
but
exactly. And how often do your friends drive 900 kilometers in a row? You know, in a row without
of course,
stopping
on a daily
once?
basis. Of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's. I definitely don't need to be encouraged myself, but it's good to see that the push on a European level is in the right direction. And that's what I want to see and convince people.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you said.
It continues to be very strong.
We need to stay competitive.
And it's not just 2035. I mean, this is the dot on the horizon, the 2025. You have targets in 2025, you have targets in 2030, and you have countries like France and like Germany that are trying to go fast on this. So,
okay,
you know, the direction is very clear.
Do we have any tools to punish the ones who don't?
What is interesting about the CO2 regulation is that, you know, it is very, very effective because it is a regulation that applies to the car makers, meaning that if you don't comply, you have to pay a fine, and it's automatic.
Right.
There's no discussion with the member states. It's not political. It's just automatic. Comply, or you will be fined.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm happy to hear that, and I hope that we will compete with the US, and most of our viewers will be from the US. So they need to know that we are looking at them, and you know, they should feel our breath on their back.
For the US viewers, let me be clear that I'm very happy with the Inflation Reduction Act.
So am I.
I'm just a little worried about
Cleantechnica has been writing about it extensively,
Yeah.
and how much good it did to the US and to the clean tech world. Okay, we just need to, you know, follow them quickly so that we don't stay behind.
Exactly, and protect ourselves a little bit.
Thank you, William.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for finding the time and talking to us. And enjoy the rest of the Congress.
Super. Thank you so much.